episode number 10. You are listening to the More Than a Lawyer podcast with your host, Janine Esbrand. I'm here to help lawyers and mums to thrive in their careers and motherhood. I share tips, strategies, and inspirational conversation with awesome women to help you reduce the struggle in your juggle. Hello and welcome to the show. I am really excited about today's show because it's a special one. I have a guest host on with me today and it's Angie Bryan from Mindful Mama. And together we will be talking to an awesome mother of twins who shares a lot about not losing yourself in motherhood. So if you're struggling with the transition to becoming a new mum and losing your individual identity, then this show is a must listen. We will be talking mothering multiples, infertility, self-care, teamwork, and a whole lot more. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I would like you to just introduce yourself to our listeners and tell them a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Thank you for having me. My name is Sunit. I am a wife and a mom of twin 4-year-old boys. I'm a career woman. I have a great job that I love. And when my boys were born, I actually also started a mommy blog. Mm-hmm. I give I'm really into like fashion and makeup, and I just started giving tips on how I was raising my boys, but maintaining kind of my sense of self. And I'm not technically savvy at all. So okay. The blog is really just an amateur blog that I would just write whenever I felt the need to write.
Okay.
But more recently, I've started to really dig deep and kind of figure out what my passions are in life, in addition to a job that I really love, but there's something else kind of pulling at me. So I've, been wanting to focus more on just really honing in on what that passion is. And it's really inspiring women not to lose themselves after having kids. And I really want to focus more on doing that with my blog. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm all about in a nutshell.
Oh, cool. That sounds awesome. So a lot of our listeners are women who are trying to balance their career and motherhood, or who are going through some form of transition. So it sounds like you're definitely doing a balance if you've got the career that you love and you're raising twins. So can you tell us a bit more about how you go about balancing? Like for you, how does balancing work? What does it look like for you?
I think the most important thing for me is starting off with an intention. Like, what is my intention? And this is before I even had kids. This is actually while I was pregnant. I was thinking, okay, am I going to be a stay-at-home mom, or do I still want to work? And what kind of a mom do I want to be? And I had really this intention of not losing myself. And I think if you don't have that intention and you just kind of wing it, a lot of times you'll have your baby and you end up just being really overwhelmed. Mm-hmm. And you're kind of lost, because once the baby comes, or babies in my case, I really thought ahead of time about where you come into the picture, then you don't really have time to think about it once you have kids. So I think for me, the balance came from having the intention of knowing I don't want to lose myself, and what does that mean? So for me, it meant I still want to be able to have time to myself. I still want to be able to hang out with my girlfriends. I still want to be able to drink wine and watch The Real Housewives and do all these things that I enjoy doing, Mm-hmm. And so with that then came, okay, how am I going to make sure that I don't lose myself? And what are some of the steps I need to take to make sure that everyone around me is supporting me in that intention? So I think a big part of having that balance is knowing you want it in the first place.
Okay.
That's the place to start.
Yeah. Did you find that there was a bit of a mismatch between what you thought you wanted before you had the boys, and then what you decided you wanted afterwards? Was there?
And did you keep the same career? Like, did you have the same job?
So if you back up to, if you would have asked me that question, like 5 years before I even had kids, or when I first got married, I always thought I would just want to quit my job and be a stay-at-home mom. So I really did think that for many, many years. But as I got deeper and deeper into my career, and not only from a career perspective, but just the people that I work with that I really love, I thought, this is actually something I enjoy doing. I don't think I want to be a stay-at-home mom. And then that was the intention that I had when I actually got pregnant and really started thinking about it. I was like, no, and I struggled with infertility as well. So, there was a part of me that was kind of like, oh, I worked so hard to have these babies and now I'm finally pregnant and, should I be staying home with them or should I be going back to work? But here in Canada, we're actually very lucky. We get a 1-year maternity leave.
Yeah, like the UK.
Yes. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to take the year at home and I'm going to be with them. And if I change my mind about going back to work, I can do that. But being at home for that year just kind of confirmed to me that I love them and I love being a mom to them, but I do need something outside of them to maintain my sense of self.
Okay.
So, yeah, that was kind of the journey that I was on. So it changed from 5 years ago when I had thought I just want to be a stay-at-home mom. But as I got, closer to the time of having kids, I think for me, I needed something else.
Okay. And you mentioned just now about your struggle with fertility. I know that there's a lot of women that have that struggle and people aren't always open and willing to talk about it or they don't have the platform to talk about it. So it'd be great if you could share a bit to inspire or encourage anyone who's going through a similar struggle.
For sure. And you hit on a really important point there about people not talking about it. I didn't really talk about it either when I was going through it. And I think the reason a lot of us don't want to talk about it is because, first of all, you're just saying the same things over and over again to anyone who asks. And you often start to feel like a broken record and you're dealing with all these emotions yourself and you don't really want to talk about it. I was happy to talk about it with other people who were struggling.
Okay.
Or if, somebody came to me and said, we're having trouble conceiving and, you're pregnant with twins. Did you do something else? Because oftentimes, being pregnant with twins, people will say, oh, well, is that natural or did you have in vitro? And I was happy to talk about it with people that genuinely wanted to know. But otherwise, you just don't really want to talk about it because you feel like people are just being nosy.
Okay.
And so having said that, though, yes, I mean, we struggled for a few years. I didn't meet the love of my life till I was in my early 30s. And then I also had my career and, so we put off having kids for a few years. And then all of a sudden you start trying and it's not happening. And it was really tough, for a few years there. And having to go through in vitro is not the easiest process.
Yeah.
You're essentially isolated because nobody really knows what you're going through, and the only person who knows is your partner.
Yeah.
And you're having to, go for constant blood work, constant exams, injecting yourself with medication. The hormones make you feel crazy. And, the first time we did it, I thought, this is it. Like, this is going to work. Like, we're going to finally have a baby. And it didn't work. And I was just devastated, and then tried again. Didn't work again.
Oh, wow.
Devastated again. Yeah. And in the meantime that this is all happening, I have to say that one of the reasons I am so passionate about inspiring women not to lose themselves is because while I was in the middle of desperately trying to have a baby, I was surrounded by women who seemed miserable as moms, and they would inadvertently make comments like, oh, don't do it. Don't have kids. It's just, like that. And I just thought to myself, oh my gosh, I would give anything to be where you are right now. I would give anything to have a baby. So I just kind of made this secret promise to myself that if I was ever lucky enough to be a mom, that I would take such good care of myself so that I could really be present for my kids and not feel like I wish I never had them, And I think part of dealing with infertility is you really feel guilty to complain about being a mom if you've struggled so much to have your kids.
Yeah.
Not to say that I love my kids any more than any other mom out there, but I think as somebody who struggles with infertility, we just have that extra kind of layer of wanting to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves so that we can give 100% of ourselves to our kids.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what started my whole thought process of really making sure that I wasn't that frazzled, overwhelmed mom.
Yeah.
And then, on our third try, we got pregnant. Then, like 6 weeks later, after the positive pregnancy test, we found out that it was twins.
Wow.
And people always say, "Oh, well, you put 2 in there, so you probably was probably not that big of a surprise." But we had done 2 before, and we didn't get pregnant. So the fact that we got pregnant at all was a shock. And then you kind of know deep down in the back of your mind it could be 2, but it's still always like, whoa.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then I just became consumed with having a healthy pregnancy and taking really good care of myself, because we went through so much to get here. And with twins, it's a high risk pregnancy, and you really just want to do everything right so that something doesn't go wrong. And that's where my self-care really started as well. I really started taking really good care of myself while I was pregnant, taking time for myself, and then really just starting to look ahead and think about, okay, how am I going to manage these 2 little bundles? And not only that, but it's like we are very far from our family, so we didn't really have a ton of help.
Yeah.
And we knew that it would just be us. So it was really had to plan and think ahead. And the other thing I want to add in too is, I think part of when somebody is struggling with infertility, it's such an emotional time, but I find that dealing with all the possibilities of what could happen and planning for those things really helped me come to terms with the fact that I may never have my own child. So for anybody out there right now who's struggling, what I did was kind of open myself up to, are we open to maybe adoption? There's a lot of other babies out there who need love, and what kinds of things, and even if we don't adopt, what kind of a life are we going to live without kids? And just kind of having a little bit of that plan in the back of your mind so you feel like you have some control.
Yeah.
I think it really helped me come to terms with the fact that I may not ever have my own biological children.
Yeah. And I think it's really important what you said is for people to have that time, to take that time to kind of think things through and to plan, and to realize that as much as you plan, things might not go to plan. So you kind of have to have an element of being open to different possibilities. And if you get so stuck on the plan, that's when you're gonna kind of stress yourself out and think it's not happening, and sometimes that can have a negative effect on what it is you're trying to achieve, if you're approaching it from a place of stress as opposed to a place of, okay, I've thought about all of the possibilities and now I'm open to see which one happens.
Exactly. And that's how I deal with everything in my life. And I think I may have mentioned to you in a previous conversation when we first started talking way back when, is my dad has been diagnosed with terminal brain cancer. And, I've had all these things come at me in my life in the last, since I've been married to my husband and we've kind of started to live this grown-up life. All these things are thrown at us. And I always just look at the glass as half full, and people will say, I don't know how you're doing this, or I don't know how you're getting through this. And that's how I get through it. I think about what's the worst case scenario?
Yeah.
How am I going to deal with that? And I choose to just remain positive and deal with things as they come, but know that if the worst case scenario happens, I'm prepared for that too.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's just how you really life just throws the craziest things at you. You could never imagine some of the things that are going to come, and that's how you have to take it, I think.
Yeah, and having the approach to choose, and realizing that in every situation you have a choice in terms of the way that you will approach it. So if you're trying to achieve something and you get knocked down, you can choose to just stay where you are, or you can choose to say, do you know what? Okay, this didn't work, but I'm going to try again, or I'm going to take a different approach. So not staying in that place of, okay, things aren't going my way, I'm just going to be upset and I'm just going to be miserable, but choosing to be happy and just move forward is definitely, it's empowering when you take that approach, because you're like, okay, I can take whatever comes because I can choose to see the positive side of everything, even though sometimes it's hard. It's not going to be easy, but it can help you to move through stuff to take that approach.
Absolutely. And sometimes, don't get me wrong, I get sad and I get down and I just need to have one good cry.
Yeah.
All out cry.
But I think the key is that you didn't lose hope. through your fertility treatment, like through all of that, you kept trying, and that was that was the key factor through it all. That it was maybe it wasn't always positive. It wasn't always like, I'm glad I'm going through this, but that sense of that stream of hope. Mm-hmm.
I always say, when you have nothing else left, you still always have hope.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't want to hold on to it falsely. Like, you got to know when to let go. But,
right.
I want to add in there that although I have my 2 beautiful boys and I am just so, so blessed and feeling so thankful for them, we did want more children after that. And I did have 2 pregnancies after them, which ended in miscarriages.
Oh, wow.
And, I almost hate telling that story to people because they'll say, well, you have your 2 boys, so, why would you be, but it's still devastating to go through a miscarriage or to desperately want a child and then think you're going to have it and then to lose it. And that happened to me twice. And each time was just like blow, even though I had my boys. So I still kind of struggled with that after I had them. And then, I finally I turned 40 in October, and I just came to terms with the fact that, this is just how it was meant to be. And we still think about adoption sometimes, and that's on the back burner as well. But, it is, again, just choosing how you respond and not just laying down and giving up.
Yeah.
It's important.
It's, we both have boys, and so it would be really interesting just for you to tell us a bit about them and how you run your household with twins.
Yeah, definitely.
We've always said to each other, imagine if we had 2 of these and we had to manage them by ourselves. Well, not by ourselves, with your husband, but
you don't have family support, because I don't have family support here. So kind of how you did it.
How do you do that?
Yeah. So, and I talk about this, I'm actually writing a book, and I talk about this in my book about setting the intention and taking care of yourself first. But then I also say that the second most important person is actually your husband or your partner. Because, you have I see all these moms who are overwhelmed, but then they don't want to let their husband help them because they don't trust the way he might be doing something. Yeah. So that was a big part of it for me, is not only did I kind of figure out what kind of a parent I wanted to be and read all the parenting books, but I also really had those discussions with my husband about what kind of parents we want to be, what kind of kids we want to raise. And I let himself know I need time to myself. I'm going to need time to take care of me. And because we set that intention ahead of time and we were on the same page, once they were born, he was a big help. And there'd be, I remember on that 1 year that I was off, my husband has his own business and he works 6 days a week. So Sundays are actually his only day off. So I was home with the boys constantly by myself. And on Sundays, our deal was that I get to leave the house for, 5 or 6 hours. And sometimes I would just go read a book in a coffee shop or read a magazine. Sometimes I would go get my hair done or my nails done or get a massage. And he would stay home with them by himself and, do the daddy thing and take care of them. And I think it's really hard for us as moms, especially in those early days when you're spending all that time with your babies. You kind of are like, oh, you're not doing that right, or you got the diaper on the wrong way, or, and I just told myself, he is their dad. He might not do it exactly the way I do it, but he loves them just as much as I do, and he's going to get it done as long as they're happy, fed, and alive when I get home.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Just let it go. And by doing that once a week, after the first few months, a good girlfriend of mine, they were actually 6 months old. A good girlfriend of mine was getting married back home where I'm from. We'd originally thought we would all go as a family and take the kids. And then once they were born, we were like, 2 6-month-olds? We can't go to a wedding with 2 6-month-olds. That's not in the same city as us. There was just too many complicating factors.
Yeah.
So we decided that I would go by myself and he would stay home with them. And I was at first I was kind of oh my gosh, he's going to be alone with them for 3 days. And then I just thought, you know what? He is with them alone all the time and he's doing a great job. And I kind of let him have it, and I really tried not to check in on him too much and not to kind of be like, you got to do this, 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 and this. And I just let him do it. And not only was it amazing for me, but it was amazing for him, because when you give a dad or a man that responsibility and just say, I trust you, do it the way you need to do it,
Yeah.
it makes them feel so empowered, and they want to help. You know, the women who complain to me that that the dad doesn't really help out that much, I will often think, yeah, but you probably also make him feel like he's doing a lot of things wrong. So maybe he doesn't want to help anymore.
Yeah.
So I think the juggling part, just, it is a juggle, but when you have that understanding with your partner and you just kind of hand things over to them and trust that they're doing a good job and keep hands off, it really does something amazing for them as well. And they want to be more involved and they want to do more. And it's just by default, they just end up helping out more.
Yeah.
And that's really all it was for us, was just a total partnership. Like nighttime feedings were literally like, you know, both of us are getting up and feeding one baby each at the same time, because I wanted them on a schedule. I didn't want one to be feeding at 2:00 and sleeping at 3, and the other one sleeping at 2. And I wanted them to be on the exact same schedule, so when they sleep, they're both asleep.
Yeah.
And so we were like, we're going to keep them on this schedule, and whatever we have to do, whether it's, I'm feeding both babies like with 2 bottles, and my husband gets 1 night of sleep, and then the next night I get to sleep and he's double feeding them, or whatever it was, we kind of created this routine and we made sure we stuck to it so that they were both on that same schedule. And the scheduling part of it was really, I think, what kind of helped us keep our sanity.
Yeah.
So they're on a schedule. We know what to expect. They're both sleeping at the same time, eating at the same time. And, I would say God gave me 2 hands for this reason. In this case, it was literally like 1 baby in each arm. And so I think having the partner on board is the next biggest thing you can do, and just being aligned with all your intentions.
Yeah, I love that. And I always say, my husband and I, we decided that we were going to be a team. When we got married, we said we're Team E. So when we've had our baby, it's like he's an addition to our team, but first and foremost, we were the team before he came along. So we have to work together in whatever we're doing. So there'll be days where I'm just like, I need tag team, like I need to go now, can you take over? And so it's nice to know that he'll be available and willing to step in when I need to step away, or vice versa. So it is really important, I think, for your relationship as well, to stay connected, for you guys to just communicate and keep the lines of communication open and be honest when you need that time out, because it's not easy being on duty all the time.
Just said that about you and your husband being a team, because that's exactly how you have to approach this. I know in my experience, just a lot of the women that I'm surrounded by will oftentimes have the baby, and then the husband gets shifted out of the picture. And really thinking of you and your husband as a team before you get started, and knowing that this little person that's coming into the world is now just going to be an addition to your team. I think that's such a great mindset to have, because then you're working as a team, and it's not like this baby is replacing your husband. Yeah. And I think it is so important to approach it that way, because when you have a team, it's just so much easier to do things. And when your husband's a part of that team, you're going to feel much less of a burden, I think, because your husband's going to be a part of helping you with that baby.
Yeah.
How do you kind of put yourself first when you talk about putting yourself first? What is that like practically? What does that look like for you?
I think really, for me, the most important thing is knowing that I want to put myself first and just doing all the same things that I've always done. I do have a job outside of the home. I have other things that I focus on outside of my kids. So I make sure that I'm still able to do those things. I have guilty pleasures like watching The Real Housewives and The Bachelor and things like that I like to do. And I just make sure that I have
my systems set up in a way that I'm able to do those things. So, I rely on my husband to take the kids every now and then so I can do those things. And I do have my kids on somewhat of a schedule so that I know that every night they're going to bed at 8 o'clock, and after that it's my time. I know when I first had my babies, I was home, for quite a while with them on a maternity leave, and I made sure that that my husband was spending the day with them on Sundays so that I could go get my hair done or go to the spa or just go sit in a coffee shop and read a book. So those are the kinds of things that I've always done. And girls' trips have been a huge thing for me. I live in a city far from where all my friends and family are, and it's important for me to reconnect with those people. And I like to be able to have a weekend where I get away from my kids and I leave my husband with them and I go reconnect with my girlfriends and all the things that I love to do, whether that's, yoga or meditation or drinking wine all weekend or going to Vegas for a crazy trip.
So we wanted to just hear, I know we were just talking about what you do to put yourself first. Just in general, what kind of tips or life hacks do you have for moms that you can offer for us today?
For me, I think whether you're a mom to be or a new mom or somebody who's even thinking about having kids, I think now is a good time, if you haven't already thought of this, is having a plan in place, so to speak, like knowing what kind of mom you want to be, what kind of kids you want to raise, and creating kind of a rough blueprint of just what that looks like will help you work backwards to raise your kids. So for me, having that time to myself was important, but how was I going to get that time? I thought, you know what? I'm having twins. I'm going to need to put them on some sort of a schedule so that I'm not all over the place. So for me, scheduling was a big thing, and I'm a huge advocate of sleep training and scheduling for kids, but I know there's a lot of moms out there who just like to fly by the seat of their pants, and I think that's great too, as long as you know what that looks like ahead of time.
Yeah.
So, I like to take it a step back from saying I think everybody should schedule their kids or sleep train their kids, and just go further back from that, which is what's really important to you, figure that out, and then move kind of backwards from there and go, okay, in order for me to have time to myself, for me, I had twins. So I thought, well, I need them sleeping at the same time and I need them eating at the same time. And how am I going to do that? And then once I started kind of Googling and reading some books, I was like, okay, this is possible. I'm going to do this. So, things like that, just knowing what your intentions are, having your partner on board, knowing what kind of kids you want to raise, and just having a plan. I think knowing what to expect is probably the biggest tip I can give.
Cool.
Great. Thanks for those tips. Yeah.
Those are awesome. I would have loved to have those like a few months back.
I know.
Yeah, but I totally agree. Like for me, the one thing was like I have to have a shower every day. Like it's just not even an option.
That shower
like,
was just
amazing.
Heavenly.
So having
you just wash all the yuck off of you.
Yeah, you totally, and it wakes you up too.
Yeah,
I'm just exhausted.
So necessary. Well, it's been really awesome speaking to you and hearing about your journey and your life with the twins, and having you give us so much pearls of wisdom and inspiration. If people want to connect with you or find out more about you, do you want to share where your blog is and where they can get in touch?
For sure, yeah. So I'm at Modern Twin Mom, www.moderntwinmom.com.
Okay.
And as I mentioned, it has been kind of an amateur mommy blog site up until this point. But now that I've kind of discovered this passion, I'm really, really wanting to inspire other women, and I'm really going to hone in on my message. So I'm actually rebranding right now.
Okay.
And my website is there, but it will be like better and more beautiful probably in a few weeks' time. And I'm also finishing up my book. So people can go to my website and there will be links there to my book as well once that's out. So, yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you. And we'll look out for the book. Let us know when it's out, because we'll be, wanting to dive in and hear more from you.
For sure. Thanks,
we'll
lady.
over that. Sounds good.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
Well, wasn't that an awesome three-way conversation? It is so important to make sure that we look after ourselves, and Sunit gave us some great tips on how we can do that. Now, if you want to know more about her and learn more about what she talks about on her blog, head over to www.moderntwinmom.com, and it's mom as in MOM. And I also really loved having Angie on the show. It was great to have a co-host with me, and if you want to learn more about her, you can head over to www.mindfulmama.co.uk/Angie Bryan, and I'm going to put the links to both of those in the show notes, so you know where to find those at lightboxcoaching.com/podcast if you want to learn more about those awesome ladies, or you want to learn more about other episodes that you can dive into. Now, if you enjoyed this episode, head over to iTunes and please leave a review, because the more reviews we get, the more awesome women just like you can find this show and join in the conversation. Now, I would love to hear what really resonated with you most about this episode. So drop me an email at janine@lightboxcoaching.com. I absolutely love hearing from our listeners, so it would be great to connect with you. So drop me a line. Now that brings us to the end of today's episode. I look forward to connecting with you in the next one. And until then, take care of you and take care of your babies. More Than a Lawyer podcast features music from Ben Sound.